Hi, I'm Jim Grouch of LearnMETSIM Proprietary Limited, and in this short video I want to show how easy it is to generate the APL code for a chart that you've specified using a graphic user interface. There is another video which shows some examples of the different charts that can be created using LearnMETSIM. So with LearnMETSIM open and the LearnMETSIM or METSIM extensions workspace loaded, I'm going to list the functions using the APL command close round bracket FNS, which will give me an alphabetic listing of the functions in the workspace. And one of the functions is called chart function writer. I'm going to place my cursor at the end of the line for that function name and press enter, which will execute the function and generate a form for defining the chart that we want the code to be built for. We see a chart appear with some default data, and the default data is from the data grid at the bottom left, and we might just change a value in the grid and see it change on the chart just to confirm that this is the data that is being used. So I might want to put my data directly into this so that it will be used when this chart is created, or I can use the function that's created with any data set that I want in the future by specifying the right argument. Okay, so let's see what we can do with this. I'm just zooming with the mouse, and you can pan around and do all those usual sorts of things. Okay, let's have a look at the specification for this chart. In the top right, the chart type is currently curve. You might want to use a bar chart or a scatter chart for this type of data. We can toggle the visibility on or off. We can put a border around the chart, choose whether the crosshairs are available to see the X and Y value at any location in the chart. We can scale the fonts with zoom so that they'll always appear nicely for our presentation or our use in a report. And we can specify the titles, so I'll call my chart title my chart, and the X title I'll call X values. Similarly, I'll call the Y title Y values, and I can toggle each of those on or off. For the legend, I'll say I've got a red data set, and that appears across the top, even if it's not spelt correctly. And then I'll have my blue data set, and I can see that I don't have lines. I'll put my lines back on it by changing it to curve, and I will choose, I can turn on point labels, and we can see in this case there may be some labels that are on top of each other. Well, in fact, this case they're not, but if they were, we could fix that by putting in an angle for the point labels to suit whatever works for us. I'll turn that off again. We may want to fill in the space below the curves, and by specifying a number between minus 99 to 99, you get a fill which is less solid or less dark as the number is increased, so we can see a much paler fill. I'll clear that now. You may want to take the sharp edges off this data and put in a smoothing factor from 0 to 1 such as 0.5. We can add symbols such as the diamond, filled or not filled, and any size that suits our presentation. I'm going back to sharp for the data. We may want to plot this, depending on the data, with a log x-axis and a log y-axis. Obviously we want to rescale for this axis change, and I can just keep zooming and panning, but it's easier just to right click to get a context sensitive menu where we can unzoom and undo all zoom and pan, and the last option is set scale to default. But I think linear scales are better for this data. So again, I'll just set scale to default. For the X values, maybe the X values are category descriptions for a distribution, in which case we may want an angle as well for the X values, and for long descriptions maybe an angle of 90 degrees will work better. I might want to set the maximum X value at, let's say, 21. I think would look good, because that way I can see there's no more data, and it sort of balances up with the left-hand side. And similarly, I'll make the y-axis max, I'll make that 30. Oh, that looks good. So y-axis at x, maybe I would like my y-axis to be at x value 5. That looks pretty good, doesn't it? Well, it doesn't matter if you agree or not. That's the specification that I want to create a function for. And to do that, I simply close the graphic user interface, and I'm prompted for a name of the function that LearnMETSIM will create the code for this chart in. I'm going to call mine temp. I'm going to start with temp so I know I can delete it. I'm just practicing, and I'll call it my chart, and click on OK. Because this is a function name, I'll just explain, you have to comply with the syntax requirements for a function name. So you can't have spaces or some limited, exempt characters. So keep it simple. I did this before as a practice, so the name already exists. So I'll give it a new name, my chart 2, and the graphic user interface closes. And if I relist the functions in the workspace and look under temp, there is my function, temp my chart 2. And there's the code. Now, I'm going to use that function name as the to generate my new chart, and I could, for the right argument, specify a data set such as a matrix of data that I've taken from METSIM, or something from Excel, or something else. But in my case, I'm going to specify that my data is nothing. And I'm saying my data is nothing with a single quote to open the specification for my data, and then a single quote to close again. So I said, here's my data, there is none, that was my data, basically. And the function will accept that as me saying, well, I don't really know what I'm doing with the data, and it will simply use the default data that was in the function when we created the chart. So when I press enter, there is my chart with the data that I used when I created the chart. And the chart has all the normal functionality, all the good Windows sort of things as far as scalability and and some very nice features such as save image as, where I can choose JPEG, bitmap, PNG, etc. So that's it. That's how to create a chart with a simple graphic user interface and not needing to know any APL. Thanks for your time.